Hey everybody, today is Wednesday and it's June 16th and episode 12 of this Rome Bracy Sports Show. Like, comment, and subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss another notification. Please support this podcast by following the link in the description or by clicking support on Anchor. Listen to audio-only versions of the podcast by searching my name, Romello Bracy, on Spotify and Apple. The social question of the day today is, who do you see winning the QB battle in New England? Now, I personally don't think it's going to be much of a battle. I think Belichick really likes Cam heading into this season after having one full season under his belt, despite it being, a difficult one. I think that Belichick is optimistic that Cam will remain the starter for much of the season. But if we see more of the under 100-yard games like Cam was producing last year, I think you can quickly see him out of there. But I believe Cam will be the starter and remain the starter for much of the season. Some minicamp news that Belichick actually said. He said Newton's way ahead of where he was last year at this time. So as long as Cam can stay healthy, I really look forward to the Patriots having him as their starting quarterback as Mac Jones develops for this season. On this day in sports history, though, June 16th in 1993, the Chicago Bulls won Game 4 of the NBA Finals at Chicago Stadium 111 to 105 as the Bulls' Michael Jordan erupted for 55 points, which is second all-time to Elgin Baylor's 61 in the NBA Finals. So that truly historic game for Michael Jordan, and you always got to appreciate one of the GOATs. Despite me not watching most of his career, after watching The Last Dance, I know Michael Jordan is one of the GOATs, if not the GOAT of all GOATs. So 55 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and a turnover in an NBA Finals game. It's unprecedented, and who knows, maybe KD, if he gets there, can replicate a performance like this. So Game 5 of the Bucks versus Nets went down last night, and the Bucks end up losing this one, with the Nets leading the series now 3-2 after a 114 to 108 victory by Brooklyn. And it was an absolutely insane game from Kevin Durant. He put up 49 points, 17 rebounds, and 10 assists. Not only that, but he played every single minute of the game. And this is a guy who's coming off of an Achilles tear just last season. So I couldn't be more impressed with Kevin Durant's performance, and he's truly the best pure scorer in the NBA. I don't think there's anybody out there who can guard him. He's 7 foot. He shoots like Curry. He's just unbelievable. So Kevin Durant with another historic playoff performance. The two-time NBA Finals MVP became the first player to have at least 45 points, 15 rebounds, and 10 assists in a playoff game. And his running mate James Harden actually did end up playing, but poorly to his standards, going 1 for 10 from the field, and he missed all 8 of his threes while playing 46 minutes. So when thinking about it, that's pretty awful, considering James Harden did play 46 minutes of the game and was only able to shoot 1 for 10 from the field. I think it's pretty clear that he wasn't healthy out there, but the Nets did pick up from his scoring by having Jeff Green score 27 points on 7 3-pointers. And if you're the Bucks, you just cannot allow Jeff Green to almost drop 30 on your head in a playoff game. So that really surprises me. Giannis added 34 points and 12 boards with 25 for Middleton, and the Bucks actually led as much as 16 midway through the third. So this one was really a choke job on the Milwaukee Bucks end. They were up for much of this game. They should have put it away later in the third. In the first half, they had all of the answers. It's just there's not really anything you can do when there's a guy as hot as KD on the other side. He kind of just took over the game, and he made all 4 of his shots and scored 11 points in the final 6 minutes and 18 seconds of the third, which allowed the Nets to pull within 6 points, making the score 87 to 81. From then, the fourth quarter began, and KD never slowed down. So the Nets end up stealing this one after the Bucks led for much of the game, and they can attribute that to KD taking over and ultimately winning this game for them. We know he's that type of player. The thing that surprised me in this game was Kevin Durant coming out with 10 assists. He usually is not up above 4 assists per game, let alone 10. So KD came out and really did everything he needed to for this club. And now the Nets take a 3-2 series lead with this series still not over yet, but the Nets looking favored at this point. Giannis did have his third straight game with 30 points and 10 rebounds, and he also was the only player to receive 100 ballots on his first team All-NBA votes, earning his third consecutive first team selection. So Giannis has been playing at a high level, and he's going to need some help. Jrue Holiday added 19 points with Middleton's 25, but it's going to come down to them buckling down on the defensive end if they want to win this series. Kyrie was also voted to the All-NBA third team, the first All-NBA selection for the Nets actually since Jason Kidd in the 2003 and 2004 season. So, huge NBA news to actually start out the day. Kawhi Leonard is officially out of tonight's game for the Clippers, and his return to the series is actually in question. So this really sucks. I just touched on injuries yesterday. They ruin the sport. It makes hard to watch these ball clubs without their star players. But we're gonna see how the Clippers can adjust. I've been on the Clippers coming out of the West the entire time, but without Kawhi, I do think that's in question. It's gonna be hard for the Los Angeles Clippers to overcome Kawhi being out tonight. And if somehow they are, and they end up winning tonight's game against the Jazz, then you could book the Clippers winning the series. But I don't think the Clippers are going to be able to win this one without Kawhi. So he's either going to need to come back next game, or the Clippers team is going to have to figure it out. And he hurt his knee in the last game while driving to the basket, where he did end up staying on the floor ultimately, but he quickly headed to the bench and never returned for the game. So in this postseason, Kawhi is obviously killing it. He has 27.3 points per game, and he's averaging 7 rebounds per game as well. LA is already without Serge Ibaka, and losing Kawhi is going to be a big blow to their chances of getting to the NBA Finals. And not only Kawhi Leonard being out, but Chris Paul was actually placed in the NBA health and safety protocols. This is COVID related, and it's kind of hard to understand how long he can be out at this point. So we're not sure if he's vaccinated. We don't know anything like that. If he is, I believe it's going to be shorter. I don't even know if this is actually going to end up being news. We don't even know when Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals is going to be. So I think Chris Paul is going to be pretty safe here, but to see that he's out indefinitely is a scary sight to see if you're a Suns fan. But I think Chris Paul is going to be ready to go Game 1 of that next series. So nothing to be too afraid of. And this is important for Chris Paul because it will be only his second trip to the conference finals, and I know he's not going to want to miss that. And actually, on top of this news, the Pelicans did fire Stan Van Gundy, and he's out as the Pelicans head coach. And this was just 1 year into the experiment of Stan Van Gundy, and he was actually the opposite of their coach that they just fired, Alvin Gentry. He emphasized defense, and he became, upset when the Pelicans turned the ball over. And this Pelicans team is probably the youngest roster in the NBA. So a guy like Stan Van Gundy didn't work out for him. So now he is out as the Pelicans head coach, and a new head coach who's going to step in is going to take over one of the most talented, or a top 10 talented roster in the league. Also, with plenty of players under 25 years old. I think this Pelicans team just needs the right coach. Definitely a player's coach, I would say. So we'll see who they're able to find. And on top of the Pelicans firing their coach, the Washington Wizards have actually moved on from Scott Brooks as well. So he is out as the Washington Wizards head coach. So getting right into some NBA games that are going down tonight, we have the Hawks at the 76ers with the series tied at 2-2. Joel Embiid is coming off a 4 for 20 shooting performance in a game where he didn't make a field goal in the second half. So they're going to need Joel Embiid at the top of his game, doing what he normally does. I need 30 and 10 from Embiid if the Sixers are going to win this series in the last two games. So You've got Trae Young coming off 25 and 18, but also a pretty poor shooting performance from him in the last game. And really, it's a toss-up right now. It's anybody's series. I don't think anyone expected the Hawks to be 2 games away from the Eastern Conference Finals. And I think that just makes the NBA really fun. You never know what teams are going to make it. And the Hawks are a really young, exciting group of guys. And they actually kind of remind me a little bit of the New Orleans Pelicans, a more mature group of the Pelicans. But I like the Hawks quite a bit, but I don't think they're going to be able to get past Philly. We'll see how Game 5 actually goes tonight when the Hawks head to Philly. And the other game we have tonight is the Clippers at the Jazz, with the series tied 2-2. Like I said earlier, they do not have Kawhi Leonard, and the Jazz have lost the past 2 games. They are looking for, their point guard to return, and Mike Conley. It seems like every team is waiting for one of their guys to get back healthy, and the Jazz have actually played this whole series without Mike Conley, and they haven't really gotten much credit for that, but he's a good floor general who can pass the ball and space the floor. So if they can get Mike Conley back with the Clippers losing Kawhi, I do like the Jazz in this game. In some NFL news, Tua Tagovailoa threw 5 interceptions on his first day of minicamp. React in any way that you'd like. It sounds terrible, but an NFL quarterback shouldn't be throwing 5 interceptions, but Tua is going through a process where I think he's trying to change his game. He doesn't want to be that underneath, check down type of thrower anymore, so I think that him throwing 5 interceptions is obviously terrible, but it's also a good indication that he wants to push the ball down the field. And acquiring receivers like Will Fuller and Jalen Waddle, they're going to require you to throw some deep balls and push the ball down the field, make some reads. So although this sounds terrible for Tua, I think it's actually, a blessing in disguise. I think this is good for the Dolphins offense. I think it shows that they're trying to get aggressive and, make more plays in their passing game. So Tua did come out and say if there's a time to make mistakes, now is the time to make mistakes, and I can completely agree with that. There's almost no backfire for throwing 5 picks in training camp. There's no heat behind him with Jacoby Brissett also threw 2 picks in that training camp session. So I don't feel too bad for Tua. I think he'll be fine heading into the season. I really look forward to see if he's going to be able to push that ball down the field, though. Also, Derek Carr just reassured his commitment to the Raiders, saying, "I'd probably quit football if I had to play for somebody else." And I can totally see that in his demeanor. Derek Carr is a Raider for life, and there were trade talks about where he could go in the offseason, just because pretty much every quarterback was in trade talks this offseason. So Derek Carr probably staying put with the Raiders. I would put him in the top 15 quarterbacks in this league, and I think he really has the capability to be the quarterback on a Super Bowl team. But this Raiders roster is just depleted at this point, and I don't feel I'm lucky to not be Derek Carr, if you ask me. So congrats to him wanting to be a Raider for life, but I don't see them having much success this season or anytime soon. On top of Tua throwing 5 picks at the Dolphins training camp, Xavier Howard is actually not there, and that's because of contract negotiations. And Coach Brian Flores actually did come out and talk about this and say that Xavier Howard's situation is actually pretty unique, just because he feels like that he outplayed his 5 years, $75 million extension that he just signed in May 2019. And I'm sure if you reevaluate and take a look at the cornerbacks' salaries for this upcoming season, he probably doesn't rank too high. So I can see why he wants to renegotiate. He's definitely a top corner in this league, having led the league with 10 picks last year. So they're going to need to figure out how to get Xavier Howard back on the field. That's going to do it for today's show, though. Thanks to all of you for listening. If you have yet to subscribe to the podcast, make sure you do so by searching for it pretty much anywhere podcasts are available. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at RomeloB_sports.